you're gonna need a regular domestic sewing machine, and we're using a Singer heavy duty. Fabric for the outside panel, and we're using a duck canvas. You can also use twill or regular canvas. Fabric for your strap, and I recommend using a thicker fabric, and if you don't have a thicker fabric, just go ahead and double layer it. A sweatband, and these sweatbands are available at capsupplyco.com. A closure for the back. Your pattern, and this pattern is available at properfitclothing.com. Once you download and print your pattern off, go ahead and cut it on the outside of the black line. Now go ahead and lay your side, top, and front panels out, trace them, and cut them out. And for these panels, I recommend using a twill or a duck canvas. You're going to end up with 2 sides, 2 tops, and 1 front panel. Next, go ahead and lay your strap out, lay it on the fold, trace it, and cut it out. And since we're using a thinner fabric, we're going to go ahead and cut 2 of these. But if you're using a thicker fabric, you only have to cut 1. Next, cut your adjustment band out and lay that also on the fold. Go ahead, trace it, and cut it out. And we're using a broadcloth. I recommend using a very thin fabric for this, but a little bit stiff. And this piece is for adjusting the strap. So we went ahead and added interfacing to the back of the front panel, and you can go ahead and do this if you want. It's available at capsupplyco.com. If you don't want to, it's not a big deal. It just adds for a more structured front. So go ahead and take your top 2 panels, place right sides together, and sew just that top edge with 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then go ahead and cut the excess fabric. And now we're going to be showing you how to set up your twin needle. And this is super simple. Just install like a normal needle, set your machine to zigzag with 0 width, and thread 2 spools of thread the same exact way. We're going to show you 2 different options for adding on your bias tape, and these are just 2 different bias tape folders. The one on the right is just one you can get at any hobby store, and the one on the left is available at capsupplyco.com. We are going to be using the one on the left just because it's a little bit easier for us to use, and we've been using it for a while. But honestly, they both do the same thing, so use whatever you're comfortable with. Whatever one you're using, line it up with your presser foot and then just tape it right on your machine. You definitely are going to want to make sure this is secure so that way nothing's moving around when you're sewing on that bias tape. Now all you have to do is cut your bias tape to the measurement of the folder and you're ready to start sewing. So go ahead, grab your top 2 panels, place the seam in the middle of the 2 needles and sew all the way through. Now we're going to be sewing on the front panel. Place right sides together and sew along that edge. And just like before, go ahead and trim that excess fabric off. Go ahead and put your bias tape feeder back on and sew across that front seam. Next, grab your side panel and place the curved edge right side on the right side of the top. That sounds a little bit confusing, but it's super simple. Just start at the front and work your way around that curve, and make sure to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then go ahead and do this for both side panels. This part can be a little bit tricky. Just kind of work with it. Keep straightening out that side panel as you sew along that top panel. You pretty much want to act like you're sewing a straight line, and then once you get it all sewn together, go ahead and cut that excess fabric off. And again, go ahead and do the same thing for the other side panel. When you have your side panels on, go ahead and add your bias tape feeder back on and do both of those seams. Definitely go slow at first. These curves can be a little bit tricky, but the more you do it, the better you will get at it. Once you have your bias tape on, go ahead and grab your side strip and sew this along the inside all the way around the bottom edge. And if you're looking for any of these professional cap supplies, just go to capsupplyco.com. They have a wide variety of everything you need to make a professional looking cap. And adding a side strip really helps out with the bottom structure and folding over and adding the sweatband on later in the process. Now we're going to be finished off the back edge, and we're going to do a little bit different for this video. We hooked up our double fold bias tape binder to our industrial machine, and you can get these for domestics if you want, but we didn't have one sitting around. So all you have to do is make your bias tape, feed it through, and go along that back edge. It's super simple, and I feel it's the best way to do this. You can get bias tape double folded pre-made and just sew it on if you want, but we wanted to match your cap and show you how to do it a different way. Now we're going to take our strap, and as you can see, we used 2 pieces because ours was just a little bit too thin, but if you have thicker fabric, don't worry about it, just use 1. But we're going to go ahead and add that bias tape all the way around the outside. And definitely a little trick, make sure you cut a long enough strip of bias tape so that way you make it around the entire outside. And if you don't have one of these feeders, don't stress about it. You can always make your bias tape and add it on separately. They have bias tape making kits, and they also sell it already pre-made. So there are definitely many options for this step, and we'll have links in the description to point you in the right direction. Then go ahead and pin that band to the outside bottom edge of the crown. And there's going to be a gap in the middle. Just make sure it's nice and centered. And once you have it pinned down and lined up, you're ready to sew all the way around the bottom edge, attaching that band to the crown. Next step is making the brim. Go ahead and grab your brim, whatever brim you're using, trace around the outside and down just a little bit past. Then from there, grab your sewing machine and do a straight stitch all the way around that arch. Now go ahead and trim about a 1/4 inch from that seam. Flip the right sides out and then start maneuvering your brim into position. And if you are satisfied with the look and the tightness, you can skip this next step, but we are going to be adding some stitches to the top of the brim. And we are using a guide that will be available on capsupplyco.com. It just helps with getting nice, neat stitches around. As you can see, we're doing one line at a time, adjusting it, and then doing the next, and then making sure they're nice and even. Honestly, you can use any guide for this step, something that just keeps that brim from sliding all around. Now that your brim is nice and tight into position, I recommend using a zipper foot for this, and then go around and make a seam along that back edge of the brim. Pull towards the back of the brim to make that fabric nice and tight as you sew. Now go ahead and trim about 1/2 inch from the inside of that brim. Now you're going to mark the center front of your crown and the center of your brim. Place the right sides together, and I recommend using a zipper foot for this part as well, and start from the center and sew towards the outside. And once you have one side done, do the same for the other side. This helps keep that brim in the center of the crown. Now we're going to be attaching the sweatband. This step we made our own attachment, and we made this out of heavier stock paper. All you have to do is make a little sleeve that your sweatband fits in there nice and snug, and then go ahead and tape that onto your sewing machine. It serves as a guide, so that way the sweatband doesn't slide all around while you're sewing it onto the crown. Once you have your sweatband guide into position, go ahead and roll over the edge and then just start sewing straight all the way around. And it is really that simple. You get a nice top stitch on the outside and the sweatband will be nice and attached on the inside. And we are using professional sweatbands from capsupplyco.com. These are millinery grade and very awesome for making caps. And now we're going to be adding on a plastic snap to the back for a closure. You can literally add whatever you want onto the back. Cap Supply Co. has a huge variety of different components you can add for closures. So go ahead and roll that sweatband over towards the inside and sandwich that plastic component in between and just sew that right on. And it is really just that simple, and go ahead and do this for the other side. I do recommend using a heavier weight needle for this process because you are sewing through a decent amount of material. And just make sure you're not folding in that adjustment band. Now we're going to be adding on the strap, and what you're going to do is sew it to the adjustment band. Align the strap with the bottom of the crown and then sew in the middle of the strap. And there you have it, your strap is on. And what this does is it allows you to pull it down a little bit over your ears and then pull it back up, matching with the bottom of the crown. And again, use thread that matches your fabric because this is going to be a visible stitch. Now we're going to be adding eyelets to the front 2 points of the strap and also the side panels. And you can either use a grommet press or pliers, totally up to you, whatever you have available. We're going to have links in the description for all the tools that we are using. Then once you have your eyelets in, all you have to do is add a little lace for the final touch, and there you have it, your cap is done. And as you can see, it adjusts down so it goes over your ears and then back up around the cap. And thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think. If you have any other ideas for hats or any sort of garments, send them our way, we'll make videos on them, and we're going to keep the videos coming at you, so we'll see you next time.